Hello, everyone. How you doing? And you're very welcome to this week's last word in Formula One. And to take us through all things Formula One, we have the one, the only, the enigma that is Michael O'Grady. Hello, Michael. How are you? Are you well?
I'm not too bad at all. How's everything in Roscommon these days?
Oh, not too bad. Can't complain now. And we're not in the epicenter of heavy rain at the moment now, but that could all change. In Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, I know. And the funny thing is, we've two Roscommon people staying with us this weekend.
Very good, aren't they? Lucky.
Yeah, very good. Absolutely. We have a good
So
connection with Roscommon. We'll be glad to hear.
there you go, and you have to find out what part of it's coming. But anyway, so this week, Ben, this week, folks, we're looking back at the Belgian Grand Prix, and a bit of excitement would be an understatement, Michael.
A bit of chaos would be even a better understatement, really, for the race at the weekend because it didn't. It had the usual, the sprint shootout, the race. Now, as I was saying to people recently, remember we have qualifying and that's for the race. Last time we had the sprint qualifying last year, then we had the sprint shootout, the sprint itself, and that got you positioned for the next day for the race. Not anymore. It's like two races, a mini race, the big race. I don't know, maybe they're all wearing themselves out or something. I can't tell you. But it seems like a bit of a silly system. Just go back to qualifying and racing, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I suppose it does give a better spectacle if you're there, because in the races you go into practice on the Friday, you go into qualifying on the Saturday and practice, and then Sunday you head into the race. Whereas at least at this stage, maybe it's trying to get bums on seats on the Friday because you've raced qualifying. Who can say? But it was an interesting session to say the least. Unfortunately for Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, there was no further movement at all because, well, they did not finish. They did not start to
That's
Q2
not a
in sprint shootout.
good.
Not a good system whatsoever. They got out of Q1 of sprint shootout for the sprint race, and then of course they didn't. Alonso didn't even start, and Stroll didn't even finish. So there you go. They were the only ones actually. Albon and Sargent didn't start either, or did not finish either. So it was left up to the top 10. The shootout as usual. I think we can guess we might be able to guess and take a stab at the Darka, who was first place for the sprint later on that day. We might have a good guess at that one. And Oscar
Paul Egan, of
Piastri
course. Paul Egan, of course, no?
oh, of course, absolutely. And then there was a McLaren in second and the McLaren in fifth, which was very good, with the two Ferraris, Sainz and Leclerc, in third and fourth on the day. Well, the sprint race itself was a bit weird. I mean, wet was an understatement. It was a bit like monsoon season in Roscommon, to be quite honest with you. With the first four laps being done under the safety car, which is a very exciting situation, as we know, because no one can do anything, no one can overtake. We're all sitting behind the safety car waiting for him to go away, basically. But there was a rolling start. I hate rolling starts because it's like everything. You get a start, you have to get the measuring point of the car right, and then off you go, and you get it right or you get it wrong or whatever. With a rolling start, well, kind of everybody's in position. It's like the restart after a safety car, so no one really does much and everybody goes. So it kind of, for someone like Fernando Alonso, it would kind of be a downer with him because he's always managing to go past people on the start. Very good at starting that car, I can tell you, to getting off the grid. So I'm sure it was a bit of a downer for him. But I just watching it. The spray off the cars was absolute madness. If you were driving a regular car, you'd pull off the road and wait. I don't know how they even see the car in front of her. They were showing a couple of drivers' eye views, and you could barely see the flashing little red light. Could not see the car. It throws me back to the days of Michael Schumacher with David Coulthard in front of him. And he going to lap David Coulthard. David slowing down at exactly the wrong point, and bang, off goes. You can't see anything. I don't know how to get around these at all. They're obviously better drivers than we are. Well, not than Paul Egan is, but better drivers than we are, as to say. But the race itself, well,
I suppose with the race itself, sorry for going to crotch you there, Michael.
You're all right.
We say if you think about how we were discussing it last week, did it kind of go to that plan, or did everything we said last week completely go out the window as regards to this, or like were the parts of it that said, yeah, this is what we were thinking would happen, or like?
Well, yeah, you could say that, but the sprint shootout or the sprint, not a hope in hell. It was just absolute chaos when it all panned out. To see the rain was drying off, so people were debating what tires to go on to.
Yeah.
And the second the safety car pulled away, half the cars immediately went into the pits immediately to change tires, and then basically the second half went in after the end of the first lap. Now, was that a mistake? I thought it was for Max Verstappen, who decided, I'm not going to get my tires changed first. I'm going to wait to the second lap because then I won't be delayed and there'll be nobody in front of me on the first lap. But of course, everyone who dove in on the first lap and got tires were absolutely belting around compared to the guys who got off the rolling start, which, yeah, it kind of, it kind of didn't run exactly with the same thing. He went in to follow Mr. Verstappen as well, which wasn't a good idea because Verstappen came out in second place, which was a bit of a downer to say the least. Now, yeah, we all know that didn't last very long, but that's the way it came out, And I mean, it was just absolutely crazy. It was just a situation that was. Yeah, it is, but it was a bad situation with we don't mind the wet. The wet gives a little bit more interest, shall we say?
It was like the Formula One version of Swan Lake.
Absolutely, but then the rolling start kind of killed everything right down completely altogether because no one can really get anywhere, and then you had everybody, jumping off the track to get tires straight away and then jumping back on the track. It wasn't synchronized swimming, it was like chaotic swimming. Or so car going that way, this guy going over there, who knows what's going to happen next, because nobody seemed to know. I'll put it like that to you. It was all over the place, I have to admit. It was just absolutely incredible that, I suppose on lap 2 and for a few laps, McLaren under the wheel, under the steering wheel of Oscar Piastri was in the lead of the race. So maybe that way, to a certain extent, maybe that way it was more interesting. But I mean, I don't think he had any. He wasn't under any illusions. He had it for about 5 laps. That was about it. After that, you kind of
It's sort of a cameo, if you will.
Well, a cameo, yeah, if you will. It is a bit of a cameo, but he went really reasonably well for him. I mean, he qualified in second. He finished in second, so I'm sure Oscar Piastri was a very happy camper. He didn't expect to be qualified for sprint in second place at all. He didn't even see that one coming, I'm sure, We did have Logan Sargent getting a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lanes, which, I suppose it's like...
as we said before, it doesn't take too much. You don't have to work too hard to get penalties in
No, you don't have to work too hard. No. I think
you have to do anything to get a penalty, to get penalty points these days in Formula One.
Oh, don't I know? The only one I say, yeah, but I mean, speeding in the pit lane. You're probably talking about.
That's an ironic statement. Speeding in a Formula One race, huh?
Yeah, well, there you go. But there is that line where they take the speed. You see the cars, the tires go smoky because they're going too fast to try to slow down for that line. And I mean, speeding in the pit lane, you're probably talking about a meter or two. They're going too fast, and after that they're clear as a bell. So it's a bit of a silly situation. Although Lewis Hamilton did decide to test, how far you can go before getting a penalty, because, well, how will I put it? He was trying to go around Sergio Perez, who wasn't going particularly quick. Sergio had a bit of a lackluster and miserable day in general, to be quite honest with you. And he finished quite a bit down now in the end. I'm just trying to find out where he was, because I don't actually see him here. My eyesight must be getting absolutely terrible. Right down. But he was having a dreadful day in it. And Lewis decided, I'll see what I can do here. I'll go around the inside on turn 15, which isn't the best idea at the best of times, but it was wet. he hit it a little bit too quickly, had a little bit of wobble, and hit the side pod of Perez's car, which, Perez had no grip at the time, and yeah, but he seemed to get around the corner without having to shake. So that went in under investigation. And well, it didn't work very well because he got a 5-second penalty for causing a collision. And I think at the time, deservedly so. So, I mean, Hamilton finished seventh. Yes, he wasn't really in seventh when he went across the grid, as to say, but it is what it is. You are what you are, and that's kind of where you end up for doing something a little bit silly. Shall we put it that way? A little bit silly. Perhaps he should have, taken control of that car better, as to say, But look, it is what it is. And in sprint racing itself, Max and Piastri didn't swap places at all. Pierre Gasly ended up in third place, which was kind of surprising. He got past two Ferraris. I'll give him that. And then Lando Norris after that in sixth place, who was quite surprised too, because I suppose the McLarens haven't been great in straight line that weekend. They weren't really good at all in straight line. And Sergio Perez didn't finish in the end. And neither did Fernando Alonso. So Alonso's having a miserable time at the moment, from sort of on the grid or on the podium to where's the podium? I can't quite see it at the moment. If you know what I mean, which wasn't, I'm sure we all like to see Fernando doing well, and we'll see what happens for that. Well, qualifying for the race itself. We're all wondering what the qualifying was for the race itself. Well, the race itself, Max Verstappen was first, no surprise there. Charles Leclerc, Ferrari are back on form a wee bit because he managed to get second place with Perez behind him, Hamilton in fourth, and Carlos Sainz in fifth. It was kind of a bit more a predictable situation, I suppose, is in that for the race, I suppose, to a certain extent, with Ferrari being second and Red Bull being first and third. So that was a bit more predictable, a bit more like, our usual conversation, Ed. Will I put it that way to you? Our usual situation. And on the start, Charles Leclerc.
That'd be something different kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely, totally different. Like, we might not always be right, but we're never wrong. And on the start, Charles Leclerc, he backed to himself. He absolutely jumped Verstappen on the start. And went straight by, I have to admit. And it was just absolutely incredible, the straight line speed. It was fantastic to see, what was going on exceptionally well off the start for Leclerc. Now, he wasn't going to stay there for very long because the straight line speed of the Red Bull, but you're going to be picked off fairly quickly, And Perez went by as well. And Sainz as well, but Piastri behind actually managed to hit Sainz on the first corner, so that wasn't much fun for Sainz. Piastri limped around to fix the car, but there was a silly situation again with Ferrari. They decided to let Carlos Sainz stay out there, even though he had a little bit of damage, on the car, let him stay out there. And I'm not sure that was a good idea because later on in the race, Sainz started falling backwards because the speed wasn't there, really. With the damage, he just started going back and going back and going back. Just should have pitted him immediately.
Yeah, it would have made more sense.
Yeah, he'd have been at the back of the field. But at least he would have been. Exactly, at least he would have been.
That's like having a lame horse in the goal of a race. Is like, it's not going to win anything.
Well, that's just it. If you're going to, your driver is falling back the whole time. He's getting demoralized, annoyed, and fed up. And he really just wants a car that runs. Yeah, if he had pitted, he'd have been back in second last place, shall we say? Because Piastri had a lot of damage to the car, so he was a lot slower at getting around. But at least he would have been fighting with a fast car, new tires. He'd have been fighting and moving forwards, and eventually he'd have caught up after a lap or two, and he'd have been taking people, and he'd have ended up in a better position than he would have been by pitting him around lap 8. He would have been in a higher situation because he's practically last then. So it made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, whatever was going on. One thing I did like about it was the Williams of Alex Albon. The man was so hard to overtake. It was unreal. He was actually 20 kilometers per hour faster than any other car in a straight line. Now, unfortunately,
what was it? Was it on nuclear fuel or something?
I don't know. He was faster than the Red Bulls in a straight line. I mean, you're sitting there going, what? You know, Williams is faster than anybody else in the straight line. The only thing is the cornering was terrible. So whatever he gained in the straight,
I
when
think
he
in
hit a
fairness, when we
corner,
looked at the map last week, we were kind of saying that there was some terrible, difficult bends for that you wouldn't like to try. You know, the way some people would be
no,
daring and they'd say, "Oh, we'll overtake them before we get to this," or you know, there was some dangerous bends there.
yeah. Well, in fairness, now in the F1 as well, I noticed the commentators, David Coulthard specifically said it. You know, one of the guys said, you know, the Williams is very slow in a straight line. Are being, you know, careful and no, David Coulthard turned and says no. Both Williams are not being good in corners. It's the car, it's not the drivers. You know,
Well, I tell you,
because
like if
Albon
they
in a
bring them
straight
over here to Ireland, there's plenty of bends that they can practice, and they'll soon get okay. They'll soon improve their driving around bends aspect.
I was thinking that put them on some of the back roads up
You
around
could put that in
Killarney.
the
It's a good
Foch
event
Ireland promotion thing, like you know.
Put them up around. I was driving up and down to Killucan there for a while, and I can tell you some of the turns on that. If you can hit 40 miles an hour around it, you're doing well.
Yeah, there you go.
To get the lads back up to there, you know.
Max Verstappen and have nothing on you.
Oh, I've nothing on you at all. That was another weird situation as the race went on. You know, you had both Red Bulls first and second. Perez was there at the start, but he didn't stick around for too long. But there was a kind of a notion that rain was on the way, and you know, there was kind of a bit of this and a bit of that going on now. The rain didn't happen, and most cars decided to push through it. But Max was in a very sort of unusual situation, I have to admit, and it was all a bit fun and games with him, you know. But he starts then asking Christian Horner about this, about strategy, that, and can we do, you know, maybe we should go out and do this, and you know, you've Christian Horner on the line going, Max, use your head. Do you know what I mean? Use your head. Stay where you are. Use your head. It's unusual because, how would I put it? It's normally you get these sort of discussions with teams and racing drivers when there's a problem. You know, if someone needs to get by somebody quickly because, you know, the car behind him is closing up fast. What are we going to do, lads? You know, can I go by him? Can I whatever? But sort of, oh, Max is going along. He has Perez in front of him. Oh, Sergio's not going to stay there. He's faster, you know, and you know, he's pulling out questions and asking about this and who's going to get the first of this and the first of that, and should we pull in? And you know, it was getting a bit silly, and it went on to the end of the race because, you know, again, you know, Max wants to pull in and he's going too fast in his third stint. And he's asking, you know, look, lads, will I push the car faster? And then a couple of laps towards the end, sure, we'll go on for new tyres, you know, when there was absolutely no need. He was so far ahead, he could cruise. You know, there was no pushing the car required. And I think Christian Horner was more on the line.
What you can do on the track is down to the quality of the car you have. Like, I mean, you know, some cars have things, can do things that maybe another car can't, even though they're all kind of more or less the same. But there's tweaks, little tweaks on one car that isn't on another car can make a difference in certain things.
I agree with you completely, and it's just the way it is. But I mean, I'm sure Christian Horner there was thinking, right, you've your teammate behind you. He's a good bit behind you. He's not going to catch you, and you can cruise the car and not stress the car. I mean, you know, the fine thousands of millimeters these things are done down to. You don't want to stress it if you don't have to. I mean, he already took a 5-place grid penalty for changing the gearbox. So why do you want to take another one? Why do you want to take another penalty or risk taking a penalty? And then if you go into the pits, you get a sticky wheel nut, you get a guy that's not on the ball, you get a car going across and you can't be released and you've lost time. Why take the chance? You're in the lead. You know what I mean? Why take the chance? But you know, maybe I know Max is like a thoroughbred. He just wants to go. I suppose, look, they all want to really. They all just want to push like hell and just get the whole thing over, you know, and do the best that they can. But it's, you know, at the same time, why take a risk if you don't need to? Schumacher was like that. He never took a risk unless he had to. You know, if you're in the lead and you're 10 seconds up there, you can cruise. And if the guy starts catching you, well, then you just drive a little bit faster, and you're cruising, so your tires are in better condition. Absolutely, your tires are in better condition because you're cruising. You're using less fuel because you're cruising. You're not adding into the mix, throwing the dice if you go into the pit lane. Now, the pit lane guys are great. There's nobody arguing with that. But I mean, it's so difficult to get a car in and out in under 3 seconds. A mistake can easily happen, even to these guys who are sensational at doing it. I don't know if you ever tried that. I tried changing a tire one time on a timed thing up in Mondello Park. And I think they said I was quick at 8 seconds. One tire, 8 seconds. And they said that was fast. And you're there going, these guys could do that in under like a second and a half. Like, they're just so quick. But why?
They're doing it every day. Like they're doing it every day. So it's
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, his first grievance with Christian, and he's asking questions. Perez just got out of the way. There was no bother. There was no fight. He just, he's faster than me at the minute. He's a lot faster. Let him on by.
It's like, just throw in the ball and get the hell out of the way and let's get on with it.
That's really all it was. There was no fighting at all because, Perez was on different tires at the time. They were on different strategies, and Perez had the wise head on and go, well, why am I fighting with him? And I'm going to wreck my tires, and I'm going to wreck my time, and I'm going to have to pit earlier, and I'm going to destroy that. I'm just going to go the way I am because it's grand. You just go on by. And that's exactly what happened. You know what I mean? There was no bother. It was exactly what happened. They just let him on by and off to go. The rain, as we know, yes, it didn't come. It would have been great fun if it had because people came in and didn't go on wet tires.
It was great fun without the rain. Imagine what it would be like with the rain.
Absolutely. I mean, Stroll went in for tires and rain was coming, and he went out and slick tires. Now, I thought it was going to be a Fernando Alonso Monaco situation where you go in for the tires, you get the wrong tires, the rain pours out of heaven, and then you have to go in the next lap and you lose out massively, which Alonso did. Massively lost out. But no, the rain didn't come, thank God, for a small mercy. So it wasn't that much of a disaster, shall I put it that way to you? It wasn't that much of a disaster. Hamilton came in on the last lap, actually, to try and get fastest lap, and he did. He actually got fast lap. Brand new tires on a practically no whatchamacallit in it, no fuel in it. That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. No fuel in the car at all. So
extremely useful when you're driving a Formula One car. Well, any car.
Absolutely. Yes. Having no fuel is great. And maybe, I'm sure Verstappen didn't like.
You don't need fuel in Wexford, obviously.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I'm sure Verstappen, that didn't sit well with him because, he's a man that likes to get number one at this, number one at that, likes to win everything, and he likes having the fastest lap too. And that didn't happen. And I'm sure he probably had a lip on him on the day about it. But you're looking at the race in hindsight and all that, and I mean, just as the results, before we just look at the hindsight, Verstappen did finish first, 22 seconds ahead of Perez, and Verstappen wasn't really pushing the car. That was a pit stop, so he could have actually pitted and got out first and just pushed the car a little bit more. But look, that's the way it was. Charles Leclerc finished third, which was great. He was so happy with that, getting back on the podium again. And Hamilton, even though he had his pit stop in and did his fastest lap, came out in fourth with Alonso behind him. Alonso would have loved to have been in front of him, but that's just the way it is. And George Russell in sixth. That's the way the race finished out. It was an absolute disaster for Carlos Sainz. They should have put him in on lap 2. They just, in the end, decided to retire the car because they didn't want to stress it. They had enough trouble. He was way back at the end and didn't finish. Same happened with Piastri. They just pulled the car in after a few laps and just said, right, no, that's it. You're in. That's it. End of story. So they got Sainz out for 23 laps and decided, no, that's the end of that. And we'll move on and we won't do any more of the race on that. So, I mean, that wasn't a good idea. They should have just pulled him in at the end of lap 1 and let the man race. But, it's worthwhile mentioning, actually, on the day, to me, I thought Alex Albon was a bit of a hero. Yeah, he didn't finish well in the Williams. The Williams didn't finish well in the long run. I'm just trying to find him here now. Alex Albon finished 14th. He didn't finish particularly well on the day. But it was just that tenacity he had in there, going down, lads with DRS behind him, and they still can't pass him because the Williams is so fast. And he used to set himself up exactly right for the straight, because he knew that's where the strength of the car was, in the straight line. And he used to set himself up exactly right to get that pedal down as fast as he possibly could and take off. And what a job he did in that car. I mean, if he didn't have that straight line speed, he'd have been nearly last. He did a great job. I think pat on the back, if I saw him, I'd have stuck the hand out and go, hey, because he really did. He really did a really good job. And I mean, on the day as well, it's nice to see McLaren did pretty okay with Piastri and Norris as well. It's nice to see these two great old teams. Yeah, in different ways, they're doing different things and they're stronger in different ways. But it's great to see them coming back again. It was great to see so much time given on the television to Albon and the Williams, which is going to mean a fortune for them in advertising. And it means more money coming into to the Williams team, which means it can improve the car more. So it is great. And the McLarens, Lando Norris has been a bit of a hero in the last while, and Oscar Piastri's doing well too these days. Can we argue? No, I don't think we can. I thought it was great, the race. I was very happy with
it. So that takes us on to the news.
Oh, news at 10. Yes, news at 10. Well, there's a lot going on, as you can probably expect in Formula One. As always, Toto Wolff has announced that it's frustrating to go on holidays like this. His verdict on kind of bouncing back a bit in Spa, I think he wanted to keep that momentum going. I'm not sure there's great situation there. They're second in the Constructors' Championship. You can't knock them for that because of their consistency of both drivers. Something that Aston Martin should have thought of. With Lance Stroll being the second driver, you need a bit more consistency with the guy. You know what I mean? He's not up to the speed of Alonso. They could be second, but I think there is, sort of a bit of a situation where he just wants to keep it going and things like that, whereas everyone else is happy for the break and they're going to go off and develop the car. So it's an interesting situation, would you not say? And there's a guy, Vesti. He's actually a Formula 2 title contender at the moment. He's coming up for a debut with McLaren on a test run in Mexico. Might be seeing a new Formula 1 driver maybe in Mercedes shortly. Who knows?
There's a question there, Michael. So a fellow we haven't heard mentioned is Mick Schumacher. Michael Schumacher's son. What's the story with him? Because he hasn't been really. We haven't really heard of him much in the last word in Formula 1. So I was just wondering what the story was with him. Or can you bring us up to date on Mick Schumacher?
Oh, we can indeed. Mick is working for Mercedes. He is a test driver, and he could be called in because he's kind of a third driver as well. So, shall we say, if Lewis or Russell suddenly enter into an issue health-wise, you'll see Mick Schumacher on the track. Now, this is a good situation to be in because you only have to look at Danny Ricciardo with AlphaTauri. Okay, AlphaTauri for people who are reasonably new to Formula One are the old Toro Rosso team, which are the number 2 Red Bull team. And it's just a situation of, who's working with them and who's doing this. So the name is AlphaTauri now. And, Danny Ricciardo was the third driver for Red Bull at the minute. And because of that, he's now in an AlphaTauri, who they're not doing great, AlphaTauri, but, Danny's absolutely over the moon to be back in Formula One. Now, with Mick Schumacher, the same could happen. I mean, George Russell was the third driver. Let's not forget that one. And in the year that they were back and Lewis Hamilton got COVID, he very nearly won in a Mercedes, only for Mercedes made a massive mistake in the pits. He would have actually won in that Mercedes car. And look where he is now. He's the number 2 driver at Mercedes. And to be honest with you, he could be promoted to number 1 the way he's going. He's doing very, very well. In fairness,
if you were to compare, we'd say Lewis Hamilton to him, you could nearly say in some ways he's better than Lewis, or about the same, or not as good, or getting there.
The thing about the two is last year Russell really shone compared to Lewis, and this year Lewis is ahead of Russell. I wouldn't say Lewis is really shining compared to him. George Russell has been used in a lot of cases this year as a test. In some cases to put him on other tires to see what it's like, which is unfair on him because he's dropping back places when it doesn't work. So he's not getting a fair crack at a whip sometimes. And
that must be frustrating for Russell.
Very good driver. Oh, totally, because he is a very good driver. And to be honest with you, I think he's the match of Hamilton any day of the week. At the moment, and last year, he was actually did better in situations where Hamilton should have done better. And of course, the other thing is, despite what we all think and what we all believe, Lewis is on the downswing. The best days are there. I'm not saying he's getting slower, but he is getting older. And it does make a difference with reaction times. And his reaction times are the big one here. A fraction of a tenth of a second could be the difference between you taking someone in the corner and not. And Russell's on the upswing because...
And that could be the difference between winning and losing a race at the corners, like, especially the last lap of the race, yeah.
Yeah, well, you look at poor Alex Albon in the Williams, and the corners are no good, and he's not doing as well as he should, and Russell is on the upswing, and he's already, Russell's practically on the top of his game. If he got, he has a good car, I'd like to see him in a Red Bull. I think he'd be fighting, absolutely. He'd be up there with Perez, probably fighting. I actually reckon he's a better driver than Perez. I think he's a better driver than Perez or Sainz, which are the Red Bull and Ferrari second drivers. I actually think Russell is better. I think he's a very good driver. If unless he gets tough breaks and unless things go badly for him, that man's going to be world champion. Absolutely. There's some of them you can actually see. Leclerc is the same. He's going to be a world champion. He will eventually, once they can get their strategy right and once they can get the car off the ground a bit more.
Yeah, the yin and the yang has to be aligned for these things to happen.
No more bad calls. Red Bull kind of have it. The best driver on the track is Max Verstappen. He has been since the day he arrived in Formula One. Red Bull weren't winning. Mercedes were winning when Max came. But there was absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that the day Max Verstappen came on that racetrack, the best driver has just come on the racetrack. He is easily the best driver out there. But now, the likes of Russell and Leclerc and that, they're not far behind. I would put Leclerc.
Do you think if Lewis was rested for a few, I know this sounds like outrageous and people might say, what are you on about? But maybe if he was kind of rested for one or two races and then came back, would Lewis be a better driver for that? Or could that kind of put him back a bit?
I don't think so. I think, you see, the thing about Formula One is it's you have to have cat-like reaction times. If you're not doing it, you lose it. You know what I mean? Even when they're, they're off for a week. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're off to the end of the month. No, they're not. They're back in the factory and they're horsing those cars around those tracks as fast as they possibly can to try and figure out what you can do next. Oh, here's a new part for you. Try this. And here's another update. Try it. Some will work and some won't, but that's their job. The test drivers do a lot. But, if you want to see really how fast it is, you put your driver in there, because if a test driver is consistently faster than one of the main drivers, well, then they swap it around. He's faster than you, so you're now test driver. You know what I mean? So, no, I think in that situation, Lewis is hungry to keep going. Lewis is still a very good driver. Lewis is still up there in the top 5. But he is on the downswing. Personally, I think he should have retired. Not the year that Max bet him, because that would have been seen as sour grapes, definitely. But I've been beaten, I've a lip, and I'm walking away. No, I'm glad he didn't do it that year, even though there was rumours he would. But I think
that would have been the easy thing. But to be fair to him, he stuck it out and he said, "No, I'm going to prove." I suppose prove to himself first and foremost, but prove to others then after that, like that. No, I'm going to go out the right way. And I suppose things aren't going too bad from this season, maybe compared to one or two other seasons ago. It's he seems to be in a better.
I suppose, but the big problem now is, last year it was about the same as it is this year. They made a bit of a comeback and they did okay. To me, the amount of rumors going around and the amount of this and the amount of that, and we know from those rumors that there's obviously something going on. We know that Lewis is not very happy at Max Verstappen being paid more money than he is. That's not a good situation, Lewis. You shouldn't be worried about that. So what? You have nothing to prove. You know what I mean? You've won world championships. You have nothing to prove. Okay, One of them was a bit controversial, which Bernie Ecclestone has announced. But nothing's been done. You won them. After winning 6 with Mercedes, you have nothing to prove. So why are there rumours with, Lewis Hamilton's going to Red Bull and Christian Horner's there with his arms folded going, why would we do that?
I suppose, Michael, but when you think about it, like if you're getting on in years, like I know, like as in a normal life, he's very young. But in the Formula One sense, he is getting on a bit. But it's kind of like, if you're on X amount of money now, and like you only have you're getting on, and next thing you're due to sign a contract at the end of next season or whatever. Well, if you only have a year or two left, you can't really demand an awful lot more. We said to the Max Verstappen's of this earth. When you've only a year in yet, like for the teams, from the team's perspective, they're not going to get the return for that pay increase. So, and I mean, he's on an astronomical amount of money as it is. So, and I know, like it's like in football, they only have a certain lifespan in football, and they have to earn as much money in that period as they can, and that's fair enough. But at the end of the day, when you get to this stage of your career, it's like, in football, they send you out on loan, or your value mightn't be the same as it was when you were younger. So you have to kind of say, well, look, I've only, like when you were younger, your value might be 60, 70, 80 million. But when you get on in years, then another, if you did want to look for another contract, well, your earnings aren't going to be, you can't really look for an increase, like, it'll be more or less, look, this is what you have, you're coming to the twilight here. He's still a great driver and all that, don't get me wrong. But, that's the way sport is, really,
Look, to be honest with you, I you're absolutely right. Like, he's not going to be around forever. Max is going to be around an awful lot longer. And when you're looking at the difference between Max and Sergio in the same team, I mean, there's no contest. Max is gone, and they're in the same car. So you can understand why they're paying him well. Yeah. You can understand. He's actually the 5th highest paid sportsman at the moment.
After you be number 1, like, of course.
Oh, of course. Well, actually, no, I'm number 2. Paul Egan's number 1. I'm Spock.
Of course, did we ever doubt that? Like,
So there you go. He's James.
At least you know where you rank.
But you know what I mean? It's kind of, it's kind of, how will I put it? Why is he worried about somebody else getting paid more than him when he's probably being paid second best? Why is he worried about? He doesn't like the fact that Schumacher was the first billionaire sportsman. He doesn't like that. He wants to be a billionaire sportsman.
That's not realistic, really, is it? Like, when you consider.
Well, Michael Schumacher was the first to do it in the history of sport. I mean, how long did that take? It's not going to happen again tomorrow.
He worked hard over the years to get to that stage. It wasn't as though he took up the sport today and next thing he earned a fortune the next day. It was.
That's very true. He's not like Lewis. He didn't walk into a team with the fastest car, which was Mercedes. He actually built Mercedes up. And it was the same with Ferrari. They had won in ages. And he came in and he saw the problems and he built the team up to a winning team. He didn't just walk into the fastest car. Sure, that'd be easy. He'd be gone.
You can't do the easiest thing either. But I suppose, just to let people know that there's the competition for the Rattler's book, the Rattler and Old Burns book is still on. You can you can email or you can send a message in, and you'll be entered into the draw. And just to let you know that this podcast will be available on Mixcloud. That's Rosfm Sport, Friday Sport. That's what you look at in Mixcloud, and. It's also available on YouTube, the YouTube channel at AR Sports Therapy Clinic, and also on Spotify. So, so that's it for this week. Listen, thanks very much for taking the time out to do Formula One, last word in Formula One with us, and we look forward to looking ahead. Hopefully, at the end of the month, we'll be looking ahead to the next Grand Prix. So, until next week, talk to you later.
Take care. Pleasure as always.
No problem. Thanks very much. And that was Michael O'Grady, our Formula One expert.